I wanted to share this interview. It's one of two interviews that my mom did a couple of years back, where she's discussing her experiences as a child growing up in Germany during World War II. Her experience really typifying what families over there went through. The reason I think this is important is with all the talk of this utopian one world government, and with America increasingly losing its freedoms and melting into this sea of political correctness, or I don't know how best to state what's happening to our country. But I think we've lost the understanding of what it was that made our country great, that made America unique, and how important it is. I think most Americans today, young people, don't know anymore what communism, and communism being just one name for a number of different totalitarian systems, what that really means, what life under these regimes really is. So I think the interview is important in that, Mom and many others like her saw firsthand what these regimes are. They are evil. They are absolutely horrible. So with that, here's my mom on Stay Mad Blog Talk Radio.
I ran across somebody on Twitter quite by accident, and she was setting somebody straight, and I'm waiting for her to call in now. She was setting somebody straight on Twitter about what communism really was, and all I did was retweet the message, and she thanked me for honoring part of her life story. And I got to talking with her, and some of her stories sounded strangely like the story from Kitty Worthman, her essay called "Don't Let Freedom Slip Away." You can look that up on the internet. Her name is Addie. I think this is her now. Is this Addie?
I
Hello.
am here. I'm listening.
How are you? It's very, very nice to speak with you finally.
Yeah, it surely is.
And you're in California, right?
I'm San Diego.
San Diego. Well, anyways, your story, as I started interacting with you, reminded me of this account from this Kitty Worthman, and I'd like to talk a little bit, I guess, about what you emailed me, and we can start with that. I read where you said the Americans took our town, but we were traded to the Russians, so the Allies could have part of Berlin. Right. You said the Americans saved our lives, and then they fed us. And
okay. As the war was ending, our town was captured by the Americans. And the Allies, French, Russian, English, and Americans, all wanted a part of Berlin, the capital of Germany. And the Russians conquered all of Berlin. In order for the rest of the Allies to have a part of Berlin, they were asked to trade in the part of the country that they had conquered. So there was a swap going on, and we were traded to the Russians so that the Americans could have part of Berlin. So now we went from being under American occupation to Russian occupation. And I say Americans saved our lives very simply because we were starved to skeletons, and the American soldiers could see that. They took pity and mercy on us, and they fed us, mainly the children. And I spoke a few words of English, which was good, which they got a big kick out of it. Little pigtails here speaking some English.
Uh-huh.
And they would throw mountains of food into my apron that I held open, and they would fill it with food, and I would run home and share it with my siblings. And at that point in time in our lives, this little bit of food, I think, saved our lives, literally saved our lives. And then I don't know the time period, but it was a few months that one of the American soldiers, his name was Robert, but he had a nickname, and that was Boo Boo, and I've never found him. I've always looked for the man.
Oh.
He told me with tears in his eyes, "Pigtails, we're going to leave you. You're going to be occupied by the Russians." And then he cried, literally cried. And as they were pulling out, he was sitting in the back of the Jeep looking toward me as I was running after the Jeep. And he was crying his head off because he had a clue what expected us with the Russians taking us over. He knew. And then they were gone, and the next morning there was an entirely different atmosphere. It was a depressed, dark, fearful atmosphere because the Russians had moved in, and now we were under communism. That was the start of that story.
We're talking to Addie Virgin, and she is giving us an account of what it was like in under communism in Germany before the wall came down. And she was a young girl at that point, and she's given us an account of what life was really like under communism. And I hope some of my communist buddies from Twitter are listening, because they seem to think that communism is the way. So what happened after the Russians started occupying your area?
I would like to say something that is general, because there is a general misconception about communism. Communism is the same as, you could substitute that word for Nazism, communism, New Ageism, Greenism. All these isms are the same philosophy. They are all terrorist regimes. Communism does not mean it is a one thing. It is a general concept for all oppressive regimes.
For totalitarianism.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So there is no difference between the Nazis and the communists, except the Nazis had the color brown and the communists are red. And then we all know about green and whatever else comes after that.
Well, go ahead with the green, because we may not all know. The brown is the Nazis, the red was the Russians, the green is... Go ahead.
It's the same thing. It is more hidden. It's not as obvious. But the philosophy, bottom line, is the same: to get the people under control. All go in the same direction. All have the same thinking to be correct,
right? Politically
correct, that is.
Right.
Having seen these regimes from when I was a small child, to me it is very easy to see things coming, and I smell them from afar. What caught my attention, I think it was only a few months ago when I really noticed, when I heard the sentence "to be politically correct." I thought that was a joke, and then I realized that was serious. And then I said to myself, do people know what that means? To be politically correct means you're giving up free speech, free thought. You're now giving in to fear of saying the wrong thing. And that has taken over. People are not aware of it. It reminds me of a frog being thrown into a pail with cold water, and the water is slowly heated. And when they want to jump out, it's too late. So it is with political correctness. Don't be fooled. It is a way to control the masses.
Yes, we know that, and probably, and just so you know, you have a very friendly audience here. Most people are vividly aware of that, and you know, as far as the political correctness goes, and you know, people I know in my circles and in my Twitter circles, you know, we're a tight we're a tight group / family, and you know, we share ideas with each other, and then we spread them out from there. So you know, you're at kind of like the core of a network, and you know, things that you say here today are going to spread out in many different directions. And you know, I just want to thank you again.
American people in general are not very aware of what's really going on. There's a certain naivete because of, unless you have been there, you can listen to me talk, but you still won't know what it's like unless you've lived through it. And American people in general have not lived through this, except maybe during the Depression there was great hardship. I understand that. But to be under terrorism, the terrorist regime, they have no clue.
Well,
and they do not know how quickly it could happen to them.
I agree. So what started to, what were some of the things that started happening while you were under the Russian occupation?
The first thing that hit us was fear, a general atmosphere of fear. Then the direct physical consequences were what we had just been through, hunger. Not only hunger, but also thirst, because there wasn't water, there wasn't clothes, any necessities of life were suddenly unavailable. It is as if they came in, took everything of value out of East Germany and drug it someplace else. There was absolutely nothing. If that would be a tool, clothes, shoes, food, water, everything was suddenly gone. And another interesting thing was that in time, everybody looked alike. We all wore the same type of clothes, the same color. There was only one type of shoe that was available for women and a type of shoe for men, and they all wore the same jackets. We all looked the same.
Now, were these clothing items provided by the Russians at this point?
No, I mean, you could, if you were lucky, you were able to buy it.
Okay.
But it all looked uniform.
Okay, all right, I see what you mean. Okay. And how old were you at this point?
At that point, I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 13. And my father had died as the result of having been under the Nazis in concentration camps 3 times.
Mm. Yeah, I did. You know what? That email that you sent to me, I read the very first part of it. We said your father, but you didn't say that he had died under their.
Yes, he died as a
while
result
in prison.
I don't know what they did to him, but it was obviously a result of him having been under Nazi care, so to speak.
Mm.
And then it was just a nightmare. But if you want to know what sticks out in my mind as the worst, even worse than the lack of food, was the lack of being able to say what you were thinking. You had to measure each and every word if you would say the wrong thing, politically incorrect thing, you'd disappear. They hauled off people to Siberia and other lovely places who would not follow the political line. And then on every building, on every fence, there were banners, red banners, Frieden, Freunde, Freundschaft, peace, love, friendship. It was plastered on every wall, and you knew in your heart of hearts that the opposite was true.
Right. Now in the other the account that I read at the opening, it says that women were raped and there was like they basically looted everything.
That was at the very start when the Russians came and took us over. That was at the very beginning. I don't remember any of that later on, but at the very beginning, that was what was happening.
Wow. Who was the leader of Germany at that time? Was it a chancellor or you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
The weird thing, this is really weird. The people that were in power under the Nazis were the same ones that were in power under the communists. They simply took their coat and turned it with the wind and went with that regime. And after the wall fell, it was the same people again in power.
Now, was there anyone policing them, or they were they could do what they wanted?
Well, they were under the communist regime and had to toe the line. Our farmers all lost their land, and I can't translate that, but all of our farmers were lumped into a group called Kolchosen. That means they were a group of farmers that were now all working for the government, and their land had been taken away from them. And they had to produce so much. They would get a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, and then they had to produce as much as was required of them. And if they fell short, then they were kicked out. Lost their land, lost their homes, lost everything. No private ownership under that regime. None.
You have a mention in here about Hitler having it says where there were retarded people who vanished overnight.
Yes.
Do you have any firsthand?
Yes, I do. I come from a very small village, and we had our couple of town idiots. I say that in a loving way because we were friends. You know, they were the town idiot in a loving way, loving, kidding way. They were 2 retarded males, and they disappeared overnight. That was still under Hitler. And I remember asking my mother what happened to Kurtchen. His name was Kurt Weise. And my mother sunk her head, and she just said Hitler. And we knew what that meant.
Well, because you missed the opening, I'm gonna read for you a small section that everyone else has just heard, but just to kind of punctuate what you just said. I mean, folks, this sounds very familiar to what you just heard in the opening of that I had for this show. And here's where it says, Addie, it says, mercy killing redefined. And then it says, in 1944, I was a student teacher in a small village in the Alps. The villagers were surrounded by mountain passes, which, in the winter, were closed off with snow, causing people to be isolated. So people intermarried, and offspring were sometimes retarded. When I arrived, I was told there were 15 mentally retarded adults, but they were all useful and did good manual work. I knew one, named Vincent, very well. He was a janitor of the school. One day, I looked out the window and saw Vincent and others getting into a van. I asked my superior where they were going. She said to an institution where the state health department would teach them a trade and to read and write. The families were required to sign papers with a little clause that they could not visit for 6 months. They were told visits would interfere with the program and might cause homesickness. As time passed, letters started to dribble back saying these people died a natural, merciful death. The villagers were not fooled. We suspected what was happening. Those people left in excellent physical health and all died within 6 months. We called this euthanasia. So you're not the only one that has that documented. So I just wanted to I guess I'm looking for parallels and similarities in the stories.
Well, that was one.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Also, Hitler, of course, we all know he was an insane man. He tried to breed the perfect race, the Aryan race, the blue-eyed blonde. And I had a girl cousin, that was a Nazi from top to bottom. And I can't prove it, but word went within the family, she participated in that and was bred for a blue-eyed blonde kid. So but that is not anything I personally saw. That is what I heard. I like to talk about...
Right, but you never saw the people again.
Excuse me? You
never saw the people again, though, right?
Which people?
The people that left in that disappeared overnight.
Oh no, that I saw with my own eyes that they disappeared. Right. No, I never saw them again. They were killed.
I see.
Our experience is probably not rare, but very common. It's just that for Americans, it's unfathomable, I think. Right.
And you see that going on. You write here to me in one of the emails that it was you were 17 and you got out of Berlin.
Yes.
You don't know how.
Yeah, that is a good story. Okay, I at the time was attending music conservatory, and one of the students, one of my buddies, was a communist. And he whispered in my ear, "Addie, get out. They want you." I knew what that meant was I had been politically incorrect. You were supposed to shout the slogans, talk the talk, walk the red walk, and I was always doing the opposite. Another very important thing, if you were attending any church, or like in a Lutheran church, if you would be confirmed, you know what confirmation is in a Lutheran church?
I don't know, but go ahead.
It's like a rebaptism.
Okay.
And if you would belong to this and do this, you would be denied job, education, anything at all.
How would they know? How would they know? How would they keep track of it?
Official record. Everybody would know what you are about and what you are doing. So if you attend a church or you were pro-church or Christianity, you would be very closely watched. And I was one of them to be closely. My father was a Lutheran pastor, so you know whose side I was on.
Well, sure.
And so this guy warned me that they were after me. And what that meant, I could only imagine. That's when I packed a little suitcase, got onto a train that went not only to Berlin, but from the east sector of Berlin, the train would go on into the west sector, the American sector of Berlin. The trick for me was to get across that border without being caught.
Right.
So I got on that train with a little something I had packed, and somebody on that train wrapped me in a blanket and put some rope around it so I looked like a package. And they threw me in one of the Gepäckhälter, one of those things where
like
you
the baggage car?
Yeah,
the baggage car. Okay.
No, not a baggage car. In the regular where people were sitting, where you would put your suitcases and stuff. That's where they threw me.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay.
And now it was simply a matter of would they check this package or would they not? And the train was halted, and there were dogs sniffing underneath the train on the tracks, and Russians armed with machine guns patrolling the train up and down and up and down, and then walking through each and every car, and they did not find me. And when the train left, then it was only a matter of 2 minutes until I was on the other side, and I was free. And then I could not go home and see my family for years on end. Had I dared cross back over to visit my family, I would have been in jail.
Right.
As an SKP.
Right. So, all right. So where did you go when you got out to when you got across the border?
Yeah, I had an aunt in West Berlin who took me in for a while.
And you can walk around freely in West Berlin.
Yeah, in West
people
Berlin.
Knowing who you. Okay.
West Berlin gave a little bit of money to all those who had escaped because we came with nothing. I think it was something like $50 they gave us so we could buy us some food and and then my aunt took care of me for a while.
Okay. And
later on, but that's the rest of a different part of my life. In Hamburg, in West Germany, I met an American, and we got married, and that's how I got here.
Oh, well, that's pretty cool. And you came here. Great. You came here in the 70s.
It was about 65.
Addie, that was the year of my birth.
Your child, you.
Yes, I am.
Annie,
the other lady with us here, she accused me of that also when I was on her show telling my book.
But you know what? I should tell you about the impression I had of America when I came here.
Please do.
This is so heavenly. I came by boat, and when I got off the boat, the first thing that struck me was how friendly people were. And when they realized I did not speak the language and who I was and where I came from, they offered to buy me meals in restaurants, not because they wanted something, but they welcomed me. I cried because people were so nice to me. And then driving through these wide, wonderful Rocky Mountains, and everything felt so free, felt like heaven. It felt like I had come from a very dark place to a very bright place. I don't even have words to describe how wonderful America felt when I came here. I can't describe it. And the kindness of the people and the hospitality and I have no words.
You know what? I'll give you some, because the lady that wrote Miss Kitty, she wrote something too, and here's what she wrote. She wrote, "It's true. Those of us who sailed past the Statue of Liberty came to a country of unbelievable freedom and opportunity. America truly is the greatest country in the world. Don't let freedom slip away. After America, there is no place else to go.
I'm crying right now.
Yeah?
The memories, the overwhelmingness of coming to this country, I will never forget. But Dave, I see it slipping away.
Yeah.
I see it
well,
slipping
some of
away.
us do too. Some of us do too, and we know how it's slipping away. And we understand that it's part of a communist agenda to
don't call it communist, Dave. Don't call it communism. It's simply call it New Age, New World Order.
Right.
It's not communism per se. It really isn't. It is
on a global scale. I mean, I call it globalism actually. And
okay, there you go. That's good too.
What I see is from my point of view, I'll give you a little bit about me and and things that I've written about is what I see going on is for instance the Obama administration is set on a course to bring America's standard of living down to the par with the rest of the world, because you can't of course make everybody rich, but you can make everybody poor. And the only way America can be installed into a global government is if you have a level playing field. So if they bring America down to the level of everybody else, that's the level playing field, and then it can be injected into the globalist agenda. So that's kind of how I see it, what I see is happening.
That is exactly right, except that I don't believe it is Obama per se.
Oh no. Well, it's his administration that's enacting it here in America. Yes. But no, I agree. I mean, somebody's definitely pulling his strings, because he'll say.
Okay, I'm glad that was politically incorrect. I love it. Okay.
Oh no, hey,
that's exactly what I'm thinking.
We pee on that here on Blog Talk Radio. We're not, are we, Annie? We're not politically correct.
Okay, good.
No? Yeah.
Neither am I.
No, but yeah, I mean, I you could see him. He'll say one thing one day, and then a couple of months later it'll be like the exact opposite. It's like somebody whispered in his ear.
Yeah, well, what about that teleprompter? I mean, if you can't really... I don't have a teleprompter in front of me. I'm speaking from my heart and from my memory. I don't understand the whole teleprompter thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a giveaway, as far as...
giveaway.
Yeah, as far as, if somebody is genuine or not. Can you speak without a teleprompter? I mean, that should be the first...
Yes.
The first
and
question.
like Judge Judy said, I like that saying. She says, if you always tell the truth, you don't need a good memory.
Exactly. Yes. And I actually I retweeted somebody last night that said it was a Mark Twain quote. When in doubt, tell the truth.
Right.
I like
very easy. It's very easy to freely speak.
Right.
If you've always told the truth. And if you have nothing to hide, you can just open your mouth and let it flow.
That's right. I mean, there's a whole lot less to have to remember.
Yeah, right. Boy, I would vote for Judge Judy for Prez in a sec.
Yes, she'll get some things done, I'll bet.
That lady will get it done. You know what broke my heart?
Did you just dial back in? Did you just hold on? I got a caller.
No. So far,
Let me bring on Addie. Let me bring on this caller. I want to find out who it is. So we'll just
please do.
Hi, you're on Stay Mad Radio with David Graham and Addie Virgin. Hello.
Hey, Dave. It's Eric.
Eric. Thanks for calling in.
Well, Addie's got a subject of her immigrating to here, that's rather near and dear to my heart.
Well, go right ahead.
Well, it was when my great-grandfather, who was a very young man at the time, when he immigrated here in 1896 through Ellis Island. And the name obviously got botched up, and his father said, what the heck, we're here, we're making a new life, whatever. And when she was commenting about how it's not the same as it was, Addie, you made a very, very good point there. And I applaud that, because now those who are coming to this country legally, standing in line, putting pen to paper, waiting their turn, as the system, as the law basically requires, they're being vilified. But those who are just basically come tra-la-lying across the southern border, and even the northern border for that matter, it's like they're given a pass. And that's where, good news is bad, back to front, up is down, and so on.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe what they put us through until I could get here. From learning your history to speaking and writing English correctly, so forth and so on. I had to study, and I was tested by a judge. And it upsets me very much, the point you just made.
Addie, I'm sorry. This is a friend of mine. His name is Eric, and he has another show on this same website called "Still Flying Over the Heartland." And I should have introduced you much more properly. Eric, this is Addie, and Addie, this is Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Nice to meet you, and that's okay, because I can read show notes, and I was paying attention in the background for a bit until she was talking about how welcoming my fellow countrymen were toward her when she first got here. And I think that's a very heartwarming story, because that's not unlike what my great-great-grandfather and my great-grandfather and their immediate family went through. They were able to go into a business, and put together actually a very, very successful pizzeria and Italian eatery just off of Hester Street. And why they didn't want to leave for the longest time, and then suddenly they're like, nah, tell you what, New York, nah, we're going to go down to Jersey. And I think everything kind of slid downhill from there. Certain family members who were brought over from the old country, from both Italy and from Sicily, ended up going down some wrong way paths. And they probably shouldn't have been allowed into the country personally, but it's nice to see how it worked out in the end once they got to Jersey and then started, migrating west.
Yeah. Southern Sense dropped off for a second, but she's back with us. Annie, you want to add anything?
Yeah, because I don't know how many people know that my husband Yanni is not from America. He's actually from Latvia, and his mom would tell us stories about how first the Nazis would come through Latvia and take up all the able-bodied people. And you had no choice. You must get in line and get on the truck and work, whether it's a factory or a field. It didn't matter who you were, whether you were important or not. They would just come through and sweep through the entire village and pick everyone up. She watched as her brothers were shot because they refused to get onto the trucks to work for the Nazis. And after the Nazis left, then the Russians came through, and they did the very same thing. And she was hiding in the forest with her brother. She was the youngest out of 14, and I think they were the only two to survive, because they hid and they finally made their way across Europe and eventually into a displaced persons camp after the war. But in the interim, her husband, who was in the Latvian army in the artillery, he was an officer, was captured, and he first went through the Nazi camps, and finally the Russians took over, and they still remained prisoners until the Americans came and liberated them. They had a pretty tough story, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, Annie?
Yes, Eric.
Quick question for you. And if Yanni's within earshot, he might be able to answer this. Didn't they have both work camps and soldiering, conscription going on in Latvia at the time under the Nazi regime?
Yes, they did, actually, because when he was in the POW camp, it was nothing more than another type of a concentration camp. They would turn around force them to wear a Nazi uniform, take pictures of them, and tell them if they didn't join the Nazi army, they would send the pictures back home. And his father stayed adamant. He refused, and he stayed in the camp and took the harsh treatment and everything else because they were trying to force them into the Nazi army, and there are a number of them that stood up and said no.
Yeah, so it was basically the same way as it was in the Balkans. It was the same tactic overall.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in the Treaty of Yalta, it went to Russia, and it wasn't until the mid-'80s when countries like Poland started to break for freedom that they finally found their freedom. So, yeah, Addie has a really good story. And you know what it is? It's important Addie gets it out there, especially the young people, so they know. They have to hear her story.
You know what I did on Twitter the other day? I got another caller on the line. I'm gonna open your mic, but I want to get this out and then I'll bring you on. On Twitter I saw this. You can tell sometimes when they're really young. They're talking about how cool communism is or something like that. And then a couple tweets about school or something like that. And I retweeted it and I said, you used to say to the kids, stay in school. But now look what it gets you. They're railing on about communism. 772, you're up on Stay Mad Radio with David Graham, Southern Sense, and Flyover Territory, and my special guest, Addie Virgin.
Well, hello, folks. This is Tesla.
Tesla, my good friend.
Hey, Tesla, you feeling better?
Well, it's a long process. My best... I can talk to people on a cell phone. My speech isn't too bad with that, but I cannot put words together in an email. That's where it really screws up my ability to process speech. But of all things, I can speak. With a phone.
Good. Addie, this is another friend of mine. Addie, this is another friend of mine, Tesla, and he's gone through some medical complications recently, and he's been listening since the beginning. So, Tesla, you got anything you want to ask her?
Hi, Tesla.
Anything you want to ask her, Addie?
Hi. I hear everything.
Yes, you do.
Okay. There was a point the point I wanted to make in terms of what she was saying is this, a lot of people don't understand how important it is to, how people have to remember what has happened to us. The lady had said that she really didn't have much to add about what had happened to her in her life.
Right.
But we cannot. But I disagree with that.
I did
got
too.
to tell these people have to understand what has happened in the past, and we can't forget about these. And if she has the ability to do her story, so others can learn it as well, that's a big thing to do. That would be a great ability to have others understand what she has had to go through, so others can go through as well and learn.
It would be a wonderful addition to what is out there, Addie. I agree with Tesla, Addie. If you can find a way or find somebody who will take down your story, maybe even one of us here, we can help you through.
You know how to contact me. I would like to add a little something here, if I may, about talking about young people. The younger you teach them, the more impressionable they are.
Yes.
And I feel that our system is dumbing them down and is indoctrinating them with things that are untruth. And people already are at a point where they're afraid to speak up that they do not agree with certain things and certain teachings, yet our vulnerable children are taught that as fact. And these children, by the time they're 14, they are indoctrinated and they're closed-minded.
Right.
Absolutely correct.
That scares me.
Yeah, my son's experiencing that now, and he's got friends that aren't friends with him anymore because I have to correct what he's being taught. And then he turns around and tells them, no, my dad has actually shown me stuff, and he's shown me facts, and it runs counter to what we've been taught. So you might want to think first. And they're like, no, your dad's just a, yeah.
There are
no, go ahead, Eddie.
subjects, I don't need to name them. I would like to, but I'm not going to, that are absolutely wrong. They're wrong. And I'm not just thinking that because they are wrong. Our children are indoctrinated with these things as truth and fact. And parents are too busy making an income. Both are working. They don't have the time anymore to talk to their children and set them straight. It's the state that is raising our children, and they're raising them with the wrong value, no value.
Right. All right, I have another caller that I'm going to bring up. See how that goes. 843, you're on CMAD Radio with David Graham and a whole bunch of other people with my special guest, Addie Virgin. 843, go ahead.
Yeah, is that David?
Yes, this is David.
Okay, this is Yanni. This is Annie's husband.
Oh, hey. Okie doke.
How you doing?
Okay.
I was telling her that I'm getting in the middle of your conversation, so I didn't really want to mess it up. But I'm really getting a bad connection here.
So, you want to call?
David?
Yeah,
David,
you want to call
there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah. Oh no, now you sound clear. Okay.
Right.
No, I don't know if because I just walked in and Annie was kind of cluing me in while you were speaking to the woman on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And being that my background is Latvian and communism seems to fall right in there, is like something I ran through my family my whole life. And believe it or not, I'm going to be here on July 31st. I'm going to be in the United States for 60 years. And my father told me, you had to join the army, you had to do everything, because this is the country that saved your butt. So, and my parents pretty well understood communism, Nazism, everything else that there was. My mama ran through in Riga, which is the capital of Latvia, with my sister in her arms through the bombings, and my dad was still in the war, you know. So I don't know what I can add to it besides that actually I did grow up in a family like that.
Well, Addie, I'm going to go back to bring it back to Addie.
Yeah, do that. Okay, I just wanted to mention that fact. I didn't know if she had or not, but that's it, David. I haven't had the pleasure of reading your book yet, but it's definitely here. So, all right,
okay.
And good luck with your show. All right.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Mm-hmm.
All right, so Addie, you've got some opinions, and we touched on it with how you think things are going here in the United States with regard to first of all, political correctness and the New World Order, you called it, type of thing. Why don't you? I just popped the cork. All right, so you can go on ahead.
Call in what?
I just give us some of your thoughts and opinions, I guess, on how things are going here politically in the United States with regard to political correctness and globalization, as I call it. You call it New World Order stuff. Tell me about what you've discovered in those areas. And don't be scared. Don't be scared, okay?
I am scared.
That's okay. Go ahead.
What bothers me is that people are incredibly unawares. There's a lot of stuff that's happening, and people aren't even aware of it. And if you call their awareness to it, they're too busy or too uninterested to be bothered with it. And that's exactly what's going to happen. It's a herd of sheep being taken down the road to Never Never Land. And that does not necessarily start with lack of food or water. It starts with the mind. It is the mind that is affected first. And people come across to me as sort of numbed, unawares, and they should listen to their immigrants that escape terroristic regimes. These people do know the truth and see things coming that other people would not see coming. But I don't see a real awareness. I don't really dare say what I'm thinking because I'm beginning to be politically correct.
Well, I mean, you're safe from that here. I mean, we're good. I mean,
David, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, go ahead. This is Andy.
Yeah, Addie, why don't you get yourself a little tape recorder, one of these little things you carry in your purse, and whenever something comes across your mind, just talk into the tape recorder. And maybe someone can splice these tapes together, remix them until you have an oral book rather than a written book. You have a lot to tell the world, and maybe even hearing the passion in your voice will just turn one more person away from this new one world order that they want to thrust us into. Between you and treaties being forced down our throats and the Supreme Court making decisions
down your throats. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Just take a tape recorder and talk.
Very, very good idea. I will do that. It starts with the young people. There's just so much I can't even say what I'm thinking. The young people, the indoctrinations, the forced injections, the genetically altered food, all of that has an effect on the mind, and it scares me.
Mm-hmm.
It just scares me. And then there's another subject that is personally bothering me to no end, and that's what's called chemtrails. If you watch these airplanes, these are not contrails. These are things that are remaining in the air day and night and day and night. And it's not only stripes, it is also fake clouds. They kind of look lacy, like lumpy oatmeal in the sky. What is this? Why is this happening? Why are people not aware? Why am I the only one looking up and saying, my God, what are they doing?
Let me put your mind at ease, Addie. I have heard a few different show hosts here on Blog Talk Radio talk about the chemtrails. I think Alex Jones gets into that.
Ooh,
is that you, Annie? Sorry, I had to mute Annie's phone. But so there are people that realize it. Where did you get your information on these subjects?
I didn't get it. I got the information from my two very aware eyeballs. I live in an area where there are no clouds in the sky unless we're in our rainy season and when the ocean comes in with this thick fog cover. We are a cloudless area. I noticed one August that we did not have our usually crystal blue sky, but something that looked weird. It was not like real clouds. It looked fake. And I started to pay attention. And then I saw the different stripes and the different formations. And that is when I started to ask questions and got into it. So No one called my attention to it. I noticed it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But I have heard other people talk about it. I mean, they have their tinfoil hats on talking about it, of course, but no, I'm just kidding. So the political correctness is what you have tied our the root of our demise here in America to?
Yes, it starts with the mind. It doesn't start with the body.
Right.
Once you cave in to this political correctness thing, then you won't speak the truth anymore. You will not dare speak the truth, and that is the strongest memory I took away from under terrorism, that I was not free as to what I was thinking and feeling and what the truth was, because if I said it, I would be punished. And I see this coming in strong here. I even notice it on Twitter. There's certain things people do not dare say anymore. So they're winning already.
Right.
I think it's our greatest danger. And it should be freedom of speech. It's gone.
Right, and it's a voluntary forfeit of your freedom of your.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Now let me just bring it back up to date. We're speaking with Addie Virgin, and she's a person who escaped from communist Germany many years ago when she was about 17, but she remembers a lot of things, and she has a very compelling story that we've covered up until now, and now she's been here since in the United States since approximately the 70s, and we're talking about how America is kind of going down the same the same roads as what happened in back in the 30s, 40s. Now you wrote to me, fear is their weapon, Addie. They got to take people's guns too. Now, do you relate the story that's in the news called the gun walking scandal? Have you heard about that?
No.
Where guns were sold to Mexican drug cartels, in the hopes to track them to the big dogs. You haven't heard that one?
No.
Oh, well,
no.
Okay.
I haven't heard of this.
Okay, for anybody else listening, it's it was and Tesler, or Annie, if you're able, help me out with this. But it was from the Justice Department, where the ATF authorized the sale of 50 caliber weapons, handguns, different other weapons to straw men who would make sure that the weapons got to Mexican drug cartels, so that they could supposedly track them and follow them, and then find out where they're going and what they're doing. But what ended up happening was somebody, one of the ATF agents was aware of the situation, and it seemed kind of weird to them, but I guess he was told to keep it down, keep it under wraps. But then one of his buddies turned up dead, and it turns out it was by some of these weapons. So he went public with it, and now they have the ATF. They were going to get rid of the head of the ATF, as far as making him like a scapegoat. I found out today he went and spoke to the oversight committee with Darrell Issa, with a personal lawyer, and got the jump on him. So we didn't wait for a Justice Department lawyer. Anybody know anything more about that? Annie, Tesla?
Well, not anything more than what I've seen on the news in the past week or so.
Okay. Well, I mean, I found it out today that he kind of jumped the gun. Where they were waiting to have him go into the oversight committee until they could get an ATF lawyer, I guess. And he went with a personal lawyer, and I guess he spilled a lot of stuff there. Now, it's some of our opinions that this was a ploy. This whole idea and concept was a ploy to get people so that they could say, okay, see, American guns, we need to crack down on American guns, and people would, hopefully, clamor for more gun control, and then they could, the administration could enact some more. They could enact some more gun control laws. That's I don't know. Did you follow any of that, Addie?
Yes, I heard everything.
Okay. I mean, I did. I got to talking. I kind of blacked out there for a second. Did it sound good?
What do you mean sound good?
So, did it sound feasible?
It sounds feasible, yes.
All right. Well, I mean that's how that starts with the oh, you have a 2-inch thick folder on this, Annie. All right, is that you? You back up, Annie. Annie.
Oh, you know what it is? I forgot to mute my mic. Sorry about that.
All right, give us
a
couple minutes. Yeah, I can hear you. Give us a couple minutes, if you would, because this kind of ties into, kind of what Addie was telling us, or telling me in an email. They take people's guns.
Right. There's a whole lot that goes into the story. Back in 2006, under Bush, they started Project Gun Runner. And at that point, it was to use straw purchases to track a sale. And then at that point, once they knew who the buyer was, the ultimate buyer, they would sweep in and make the arrest. So between 2006 2008, it was working the way it should have been. Now Obama gets elected, and in 2009 it morphs, where now the straw purchases, they're not just letting the guy attempt to make the purchase. They are now making the actual purchase and allowing the gun to walk across the border. The thought was we're going to track the actual weapon to the drug cartel, and at that point sweep in and take down the head of the cartel and all of his soldiers and so on and so forth. Well, when the gun shops that were complying with the ATF on this, and it was something they signed into a deal, and when the owner of the shop knew a straw purchaser was coming in and knew or even suspected, they'd pick up the phone, call the ATF, tell them what they got, give them the information, and the ATF would say, okay, go ahead with the sale, or no, deny the sale. The ATF was saying, go ahead, make the sale, give them the weapon. But the ATF at that point stopped tracking the weapon, and anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000 weapons disappeared. They're claiming 1,800, but the numbers are a lot higher in actuality. And it came to light because a bunch of agents put up a website up on the Internet and started complaining about it. Mm-hmm. And then in December, Agent Brian Terry was killed by some of these drug cartels and illegal immigrants sneaking across the border. 2 of the weapons found by his body happened to have been those straw purchases. Mm-hmm. That's when it started to blow and hit the fan. That's when ISA and Grassley got involved. However, no one told the Mexican government or any Mexican official about what was going on. They never told them these weapons were ending up inside Mexico. In the interim, they traced a large number of crimes, somewhere between 100 to 3,000 crimes, having been committed with the weapons. Over 100 United States citizens, thousands of Mexican citizens.
Annie, hold on a second, please. Your microphone is skipping a lot, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to have you maybe try to dial back in. I'm gonna play a quick little song here, and we'll try it on the other side.
David, can I say something real quick? There's one more thing I would like to mention when you're ready for me.
Sure. All right. I'll tell you what. Why don't you go ahead now, and then I'll take a break in just a second. So go right ahead.
Okay. It's concerning travel. Under unfree government, I don't want to call it communism, because it's not just communism. They do not like for people to travel. They kind of lock them in, so to not be exposed to other parts, or to keep them in, like herded, like sheep corralled in.
Right.
I see this coming here. Flying has become a huge pain in the neck, right?
Yes.
Gasoline is very high. How far can you afford to travel in a car? So I can see even something similar to what I've experienced under the under communism here concerning travel. That is another freedom being curtailed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me take any comments, and we'll continue with Southern Sense in just a couple of seconds here.
You're listening to David Graham, author of Stay Mad on Stay Mad Radio.
Annie, Southern Sense, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back now. Can you hear me a lot better?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
yes,
I don't know how much. Okay, I don't know how much you caught on Project Gunrunner, but as I was saying, 2000.
It starts with the young people. There's just so much. I can't even say what I'm thinking. The young people, the indoctrinations, the forced injections, the genetically altered food, all of that has an effect on the mind, and it scares me.
Mm-hmm.
It just scares me. And then there's another subject that is personally bothering me to no end, and that's what's called chemtrails. If you watch these airplanes, these are not contrails. These are things that are remaining in the air day and night and day and night. And it's not only stripes, it is also fake clouds. They kind of look lacy, like lumpy oatmeal in the sky. What is this? Why is this happening? Why are people not aware? Why am I the only one looking up and saying, my God, what are they doing?
Let me put your mind at ease, Addie. I have heard a few different show hosts here on Blog Talk Radio talk about the chemtrails. I think Alex Jones gets into that.
Ooh,
that you, Annie? Sorry, I had to mute Annie's phone. But so there are people that realize it. Where did you get your information on these subjects?
I didn't get it. I got the information from my two very aware eyeballs. I live in an area where there are no clouds in the sky unless we're in our rainy season and when the ocean comes in with this thick fog cover. We are a cloudless area. I noticed one August that we did not have our usually crystal blue sky, but something that looked weird. It was not like real clouds. It looked fake. And I started to pay attention. And then I saw the different stripes and the different formations. And that is when I started to ask questions and got into it. So no one called my attention to it. I noticed it.
Okay. But I have heard other people talk about it. I mean, they have their tinfoil hats on talking about it, of course, but no, I'm just kidding. So the political correctness is what you have tied our the root of our demise here in America to?
Yes, it starts with the mind. It doesn't start with the body.
Right.
Once you cave in to this political correctness thing, then you won't speak the truth anymore. You will not dare speak the truth, and that is the strongest memory I took away from under terrorism, that I was not free as to what I was thinking and feeling and what the truth was, because if I said it, I would be punished. And I see this coming in strong here. I even notice it on Twitter. There's certain things people do not dare say anymore. So they're winning already.
Right.
I think it's our greatest danger. And it should be freedom of speech. It's gone.
Right, and it's a voluntary forfeit of your freedom of your.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Now let me just bring it back up to date. We're speaking with Addie Virgin, and she's a person who escaped from communist Germany many years ago when she was about 17, but she remembers a lot of things, and she has a very compelling story that we've covered up until now, and now she's been here since in the United States since approximately the 70s, and we're talking about how America is kind of going down the same the same roads as what happened in back in the 30s, 40s. Now you wrote to me, fear is their weapon, Addie. They got to take people's guns too. Now, do you relate the story that's in the news called the gun walking scandal? Have you heard about that?
No.
Where guns were sold to Mexican drug cartels, and in the hopes to track them to the big dogs. You haven't heard that one?
No.
Oh, well,
no.
Okay.
I haven't heard of this.
Okay, for anybody else listening, it's it was and Tesler, or Annie, if you're able, help me out with this. But it was from the Justice Department, where the ATF authorized the sale of 50 caliber weapons, handguns, different other weapons to straw men who would make sure that the weapons got to Mexican drug cartels, so they could supposedly track them and follow them, and then find out where they're going and what they're doing. But what ended up happening was somebody, one of the ATF agents was aware of the situation, and it seemed kind of weird to them, but I guess he was told to keep it down, keep it under wraps. But then one of his buddies turned up dead, and it turns out it was by some of these weapons. So he went public with it, and now they have the ATF. They were going to get rid of the head of the ATF, as far as making him like a scapegoat. I found out today he went and spoke to the oversight committee with Darrell Issa with a personal lawyer and got the jump on him. So we didn't wait for a Justice Department lawyer. Anybody know anything more about that? Annie, Tesla?
Well, not anything more than what I've seen on the news in the past week or so.
Okay. Well, I found it out today that he kind of jumped the gun where they were waiting to have him go into the oversight committee until they could get an ATF lawyer, I guess, and he went with a personal lawyer, and I guess he spilled a lot of stuff there. Now it's some of our opinions that this was a ploy. This whole idea and concept was a ploy to get people so that they could say, okay, see, American guns, we need to crack down on American guns, and people would, hopefully, clamor for more gun control, and then they could, the administration could enact some more. They could enact some more gun control. That's I don't know. Did you follow any of that, Addie?
Yes, I heard everything.
Okay, I mean, I did. I got to talking. I kind of blacked out there for a second. Did it sound good?
What do you mean sound good?
So, did it sound feasible? It
sounds feasible, yes. Okay, it's concerning travel. Under unfree government, I don't want to call it communism because it's not just communism. They do not like for people to travel. They kind of lock them in, so to not be exposed to other parts or to keep them in, like herded, like sheep corralled in.
Right.
I see this coming here. Flying has become a huge pain in the neck, right?
Yes.
Gasoline is very high. How far can you afford to travel in a car? So I can see even something similar to what I've experienced under the under communism here concerning travel. That is another freedom being curtailed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me take any comments, and we'll continue with Southern Sense in just a couple of seconds here.
You're listening to David Graham, author of Stay Mad, on Stay Mad Radio.
Annie, Southern Sense, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back now. Can you hear me a lot better?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, I don't know how much. Okay, I don't know how much you caught on Project Gunrunner, but as I was saying, 2009, they allowed the ATF was telling them go ahead, make the sales. They let the guns walk across the border, and they failed to track them. They failed to tell the Mexican government they even had this project going on, so they had no idea these guns were coming across the border. To make matters worse, after the death of Brian Terry, we find out they did all these little surveys and studies, and they were attempting to clamp down on dealers in Texas, New Mexico, California, and Arizona, blaming them on selling American guns to drug cartels. Well, yes, they were, because the American government was authorizing the sales. But they came up with all these statistics and tried to pass several new laws forcing stricter controls on these gun dealers to restrict your Second Amendment right to own and carry a weapon on those 4 states based upon the fact of these guns going into Mexico. When they found out that who was authorizing these guns, they backed off. Now, to add on to that, the ATF is trying to approve Andrew Traver as the new ATF director, but he is one of the largest anti-gun personnel, and they're using that excuse because of these guns going into Mexico. So now Traver's appointment is now being backed off on, and you also have at the same time in the UN the Small Arms Treaty, which will require an international gun registry. It will restrict the type
from
of
the
weapons
UN.
that you, from the UN. They're going to try to impose that on the United States, an international gun registry, so everyone will know what weapon you own. So can you imagine some Al-Qaeda operative knowing what you own? That's not going to be a good thing because there's no control of this gun registry.
Let me ask you this.
Okay, wait. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Finish up, and I want to ask you
it'll restrict the type of weapons and the type of cartridges and clips you can buy for the weapon, and on top of which, once all this kicks in, it will initiate a gun confiscation. The very same thing Addie said is going to happen is trying to happen, and it's in the UN, and it's going to go before the Senate probably within a year.
Well, it's in the plan.
Yes, it's in the plan.
It's in the plan.
Now,
yes.
Annie, let me ask. I heard something today. Who was the head of the ATF? What do you know his name? Do you have it there?
The acting director. His name is Melsom. Melsom. He was.
What about the guy that they were getting? What about the guy they were going to get rid of?
Melsom. Melsom is the acting director. They don't have a permanent director because the Senate for the last 5 or 6 years refuses to approve Andrew Traver because Andrew Traver was an ATF agent in charge of Chicago and an Obama buddy.
All right.
But Melsom was appointed directly by Holder. He's Holder's buddy, and he knows all the dirt on Holder. That's why he's meeting behind closed doors. Eric Holder is going to fall very soon.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Did you hear anything more on the result? He went in with a personal lawyer today with Darrell Issa and Chuck Grassley, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Were there any more details about that leaked out?
Not that I've seen.
I
that
can't
was just
wait
like
for
a couple hours ago.
All right, let me get back to Addie about the travel. I do agree with when you mentioned that the travel is being restricted, and sometimes it seems like it's almost like a game. How far can we push? How high can we raise the gas prices?
Exactly.
How much can we get them to tolerate? From the TSA, stuff like that.
I see things coming true here that I've already lived through. It's like all over the same thing all over again, but it's still in its baby shoes. And if enough people would be aware, maybe we could halt it. But I'm pretty pessimistic about it.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here. I mean, I'm looking for ways. I put out. I think I have quite a few listeners today. I'll find out later when I go and look at the specs for the show. But I got a few RSVPs of some people that are new to actually Blog Talk. Most of the people that we've heard from tonight have their own radio show, and I'm honored they joined us and called in, and that's the kind of thing that we're doing. Like I said, we're actually a pretty tight circle, and we see what you also know, and here it is. I was looking through the email that you sent me. What is Mantelträger? Mantelträger.
Mantelträger.
Yeah.
These are people that will go with wherever the wind is blowing from. They will go with whatever is profitable for them.
You call them coat wearers.
Coat wearers, yeah, in German. They hang the coat so the wind will. So no matter where the wind blows from, they will hang their coat so they are carried along with it. They have
support their lifestyle.
I didn't get that.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's like they will go with the wind to wherever will support their lifestyle.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Can I ask Addie a question?
Sure.
Addie?
Annie, is that you? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now, I'm asking if you see the same thing I'm seeing, because I noticed that first they go after the intellectuals and the artists, and they've been doing that through Hollywood, books, and so on and so forth, music. They go after the intellectuals. Now that after they get the intellectuals, they go after the classroom. And now, from the classroom, they're going after changing the laws. And is this exactly what happened to you, that you're seeing exactly happening to us today?
Yes. I can give a good example for that. Children of intellectuals were not allowed to go to universities or get a higher education. It would have to be only the offspring of blue-collar workers. I would have been denied an education if it would not have, because my father was killed because of Hitler. I was exempted and I was allowed the education, but my peers were not allowed the education because they came from intellectual homes. That's very true. I hadn't thought about that until Annie just mentioned it.
Well, Annie, she'd like chapter 3 in my book, wouldn't she? With the about communism and the goals and stuff like that. Addie, I stumbled across, when I was writing my book, I stumbled across a document that came from a book called The Naked Communist, and it was written by Cleon Skousen. And in it there was a portion that listed 45 goals for the communist takeover of the United States. And to me, you know, it's I wrote in my book, I observed that they like the Russians and the commies, they'll concede that America won the Cold War, but they have now moved on to the next round, and America kind of fell asleep after the Cold War. And now they're into influence and infiltration is their next field of battle. And
Which one?
Influence and infiltration is their next field of battle.
Right.
And they're winning there.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. And, you know, if you get too, I call it realistic. I'm just simply calling it the way I see it, and I'm being very realistic. Now, take a social situation like Twitter. If you are too realistic and call it the way you see it, you will lose all your followers. To me, I personally don't care about the followers. I just take note of the fact what people want to hear and what they do not want to hear.
Right, Tesla. I've been kind of scaring you having to speak too much, but if there's anything you'd like to add, feel free.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I've been listening. You know, this is one of these kinds of situations where I have to try to take it easy and take it slow and try to understand what some of the points that I'm learning about, because it's a process. It's a new process that I'm going through. One of the things that I've seen, though, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but my wife is Vietnamese. She's only been in this country for a few years, although she's back in Vietnam right now. And if you want to talk about someone who has seen what Vietnam, what the country, what the communists can do, that's a country that you've really got to see. And you know, she's got a daughter, and because of what happened, at one point she couldn't even allow her daughter to see a Catholic church. She had to go see it back in those days. I forget the word. I'm missing the word here, but they weren't allowed to see anything of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's different now.
That is shield them from it?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And, you know, back in those days, and it's still, remember, it's still, that was only, 30 years ago. And it's still a communist country today, except it's more social than it is communism. Mm-hmm. Although there's not a lot of difference between the two. And people have got to realize that we really, really don't have in the United States is still is still in the United States, in the world. I'm missing my point, so it's okay. I'll just leave it at that for now.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much, Tesler. I'm going to close out the show here with just so Addie can take a listen. If you just stay on the line, Addie, I'm going to play the Don't Let Freedom Slip Away, and it's about 13 minutes, and I've got just about that left, so I'm going to close out with that. I want to thank you very, very much for coming on and sharing your story with us, and I definitely will be staying in touch with you, and we can share some ideas. And Annie from Southern Sense, thank you also very much.
You're welcome
for joining us, and Don't Let Freedom Slip Away. Here it is.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much.
Don't Let Freedom Slip Away by Kitty Worthman. What I am about to tell you is something you've probably never heard or read in history books. I am an eyewitness to history. I can tell you that Hitler did not take Austria by tanks and guns. It would distort history. We elected him by a landslide. 98% of the vote. I've never read that in any American publications. Everyone thinks Hitler just rolled in with his tanks and took Austria by force. In 1938, Austria was in deep depression. Nearly 1/3 of our workforce was unemployed. We had 25% inflation and 25% bank loan interest rates. Farmers and business people were declaring bankruptcy daily. Young people were going from house to house, begging for food. Not that they didn't want to work, there simply weren't any jobs. My mother was a Christian woman and believed in helping people in need. Every day we cooked a big kettle of soup and baked bread to feed those poor, hungry people, about 30 daily. The Communist Party and the National Socialist Party were fighting each other. Blocks and blocks of cities like Vienna, Linz, and Graz were destroyed. The people became desperate and petitioned the government to let them decide what kind of government they wanted. We looked to our neighbor on the north, Germany, where Hitler had been in power since 1933. We had been told that they didn't have unemployment or crime, and they had a high standard of living. Nothing was ever said about persecution of any group, Jewish or otherwise. We were led to believe that everyone was happy. We wanted the same way of life in Austria. We were promised that a vote for Hitler would mean the end of unemployment and help for the family. Hitler also said that businesses would be assisted, farmers would get their farms back. 98% of the population voted to annex Austria to Germany and have Hitler for our ruler. We were overjoyed, and for 3 days we danced in the streets. We had candlelight parades. The new government opened up big field kitchens, and everyone was fed. After the election, German officials were appointed, and like a miracle, we suddenly had law and order. 3 or 4 weeks later, everyone was employed. The government made sure that a lot of work was created through the public works service. Hitler decided we should have equal rights for women. Before this, it was a custom that married Austrian women did not work outside the home. An able-bodied husband would be looked down on if he couldn't support his family. Many women in the teaching profession were elated that they could retain the jobs they previously had been required to give up for marriage. Hitler targets education, eliminates religious instruction for children. Our education was nationalized. I attended a very good public school. The population was predominantly Catholic, so we had religion in our schools. The day we elected Hitler, March 13, 1938, I walked into my schoolroom to find the crucifix replaced by Hitler's picture hanging next to a Nazi flag. Our teacher, a very devout woman, stood up and told the class we wouldn't pray or have religion anymore. Instead, we sang Deutschland, Deutschland über alles, and had physical education. Sunday became National Youth Day with compulsory attendance. Parents were not pleased about the sudden change in curriculum. They were told that if they did not send us, they would receive a stiff letter of warning the first time. The second time, they would be fined the equivalent of $300. And the third time, they would be subject to jail. The first 2 hours consisted of political indoctrination. The rest of the day we had sports. As time went along, we loved it. Oh, we had so much fun and got our sports equipment free. We would go home and gleefully tell our parents about the wonderful time we had. My mother was very unhappy. When the next term started, she took me out of the public school and put me in a convent. I told her she couldn't do that. She told me that someday when I grew up, I would be grateful. There was a very good curriculum, but hardly any fun, no sport, and no political indoctrination. I hated it at first, but felt I could tolerate it. Every once in a while on holidays I went home. I would go back to my old friends and ask what was going on and what were they doing. Their loose lifestyle was very alarming to me. They lived without religion. By that time, unwed mothers were glorified for having a baby for Hitler. It seemed strange to me that our society changed so suddenly. As time went along, I realized what a great deed my mother did so that I wasn't exposed to that kind of humanistic philosophy. Equal rights hits home. In 1939, the war started and a food bank was established. All food was rationed and could only be purchased using food stamps. At the same time, a full employment law was passed, which meant if you didn't work, you didn't get a ration card. And if you didn't have a card, you starved to death. Women who stayed home to raise their families didn't have any marketable skills and often had to take jobs more suited for men. Soon after this, the draft was implemented. It was compulsory for the young people, male and female, to give 1 year to the labor corps. During the day, the girls worked on the farms, and at night, they returned to their barracks from military training, just like the boys. They were trained to be anti-aircraft gunners and participated in the Signal Corps. After the Labor Corps, they were not discharged, but were used in the front lines. When I go back to Austria to visit my family and friends... Turning this down, but I want to put out... These women are emotional cripples. I want to put out Addie's Twitter handle. It's SONMIST7. You can follow her on Twitter, and I'm sure she would appreciate the follows. When she gets into some topics, she says she loses some followers, but I think she did a fantastic job here, and I want to thank you, anybody that's still listening. It was a great show. I had a great time, and this is definitely going to be a feature episode. Thank you again. People intermarried, and offspring were sometimes retarded. When I arrived, I was told there were 15 mentally retarded adults, but they were all useful and did good manual work. I knew one, named Vincent, very well. He was a janitor of the school. One day I looked out the window and saw Vincent and others getting into a van. I asked my superior where they were going. She said to an institution where the state health department would teach them a trade and to read and write. The families were required to sign papers with a little clause that they could not visit for 6 months. They were told visits would interfere with the program and might cause homesickness. As time passed, letters started to dribble back, saying these people died a natural, merciful death. The villagers were not fooled. We suspected what was happening. Those people left in excellent physical health and all died within 6 months. We called this euthanasia. The final steps, gun laws. Next came gun registration. People were getting injured by guns. Hitler said that the real way to catch criminals, we still had a few, was by matching serial numbers on guns. Most citizens were law-abiding and dutifully marched to the police stations to register their firearms. Not long afterwards, the police said that it was best for everyone to turn in their guns. The authorities already knew who had them, so it was futile not to voluntarily comply. No more freedom of speech. Anyone who said something against the government was taken away. We knew many people who were arrested, not only Jews, but also priests and ministers who spoke up. Totalitarian didn't come quickly. It took 5 years from 1938 until 1943 to realize full dictatorship in Austria. Had it happened overnight, my countrymen would have fought to the last breath. Instead, we had creeping gradualism. Now, our only weapons were broom handles. The whole idea sounds almost unbelievable that the state, little by little, eroded our freedom. After World War II, Russian troops occupied Austria. Women were raped, preteen to elderly. Press never wrote about this. Never wrote about this either. When the Soviets left in 1955, they took everything that they could, dismantling whole factories in the process. They sawed down whole orchards of fruit, and what they couldn't destroy, they burned. We called it the burned earth. Most of the population barricaded themselves in their houses. Women hid in their cellars for 6 weeks as the troops mobilized. Those who couldn't paid the price. There is a monument in Vienna today dedicated to those women who were massacred by the Russians. This is an eyewitness account. It's true. Those of us who sailed past the Statue of Liberty came to a country of unbelievable freedom and opportunity. America truly is the greatest country in the world. Don't let freedom slip away. After America, there is no